The moment I had been waiting for all my life had finally arrived. My wedding night. The woman I had loved for years was finally mine. The dim glow of the bedside lamp cast a soft light on Jenifer, her delicate face resting against my shoulder, her fingers tracing lazy circles on my chest. A night filled with love, promises, and a future we were supposed to build together. But just as I leaned in to kiss her, she whispered a name that wasn't mine. Shane. My body froze. The warmth between us turned ice cold in an instant. For a moment, I thought I had misheard. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was a slip of the tongue. My heart pounded violently against my ribs as I pulled back slightly, staring at her. She didn't realize it at first. Her eyes were still half-lidded, her lips parted as if lost in a dream. But when she opened them fully and saw the look on my face, her breath hitched. Silence. Thick. Suffocating. I waited for her to say something, to correct herself, to laugh it off, to give me any reason to believe that my world wasn't crashing down. But her lips trembled, her face drained of color. And that's when I knew. The name she whispered wasn't a mistake. A bitter laugh crawled up my throat, but I swallowed it down. My hands, which had once cradled her with love, now clenched into fists. The warmth in my chest had been replaced with something hollow, something cold. I slowly sat up, pushing the covers aside. Nauman. Wait. She started, her voice cracking. But I didn't need to hear whatever pathetic excuse she was about to offer. I reached into the drawer beside me, pulling out an envelope I had never imagined I'd use this soon. Divorce papers. I threw them on the bed beside her, the same bed that should have been ours. Her breath hitched. Why, what is this? I stood up, my voice void of emotion. Congratulations, Jenifer. You just turned our wedding night into our last night as husband and wife. She gasped, reaching out for me, but I was already walking away. I didn't care what she had to say. Because the woman I married, she had never truly been mine. I stood at the edge of the bed staring at Jenifer, my wife of only a few hours, as the name she had just uttered hung in the air like a slow-burning poison. Shane? It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't the slip of a tired tongue, the way she had whispered it, so softly, so intimately. It was a name she had called before, a name that meant something to her, but not to me. I watched her as she realized what had just happened. Her body tensed, her breath hitched, and her eyes, those beautiful brown eyes that once held love for me, widened in sheer horror. She knew. She knew she had just made the one mistake she could never take back. Nauman, she gasped, sitting up quickly, the white silk sheet slipping off her shoulder. Wait, I didn't wait. I couldn't. A sharp, bitter laugh escaped me as I turned away, my hands clenched at my sides, trying to stop the rage and betrayal from consuming me whole. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, to shake her until she told me the truth, but I knew the truth already. I took a deep breath and forced myself to stay calm. Who is he? I asked, my voice unnervingly steady. Jenifer opened her mouth, but no words came out. She looked like a deer caught in headlights, trapped, exposed, desperate to find an escape. There's no one, she finally whispered. A lie. A pathetic, insulting lie. I turned back to face her, my jaw clenched so tightly it hurt. You just said his name in our bed, Jenifer. On our wedding night. And you expect me to believe there's no one? Tears welled up in her eyes, but they didn't move me. Not this time. Not after everything I had done for her. Not after I had given her my heart, my soul. Everything. Nauman, please, she whispered, reaching for my hand. I stepped back. Her touch burned me. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that this was all just a nightmare, that I'd wake up and find her curled up beside me, whispering my name instead. But reality was cruel. And the woman I married was not the woman I thought she was. The lies that came crashing down. I ran a hand through my hair, exhaling sharply as I tried to process everything. Shane. Who the hell was Shane? My mind raced back through the years we had spent together. Had she ever mentioned a Shane before? A friend? A coworker? An ex? Then it hit me. 6 months ago. That text message, the one she quickly deleted when she thought I wasn't looking. Just an old friend, she had said with that easy, dismissive smile. And I, the idiot who loved her, had believed her. My stomach twisted in fury. How many times had she lied to me? How many moments, how many nights had she spent thinking about him while I sat beside her, loving her, trusting her? The truth had been staring me in the face all along, and I had been too blind, too stupid to see it. Until now. I turned to the bedside table, pulled open the drawer, and grabbed the envelope I had brought with me as a precaution. I had never wanted to use it. I had never thought I would need to use it, but life had a cruel way of proving me wrong. I threw the divorce papers onto the bed beside her. Jenifer's breath hitched. What is this? I crossed my arms, my expression cold, unyielding. That, Jenifer, is exactly what it looks like. Her hands trembled as she picked up the papers, flipping through them in disbelief. No, she whispered, shaking. Her head. No, you don't mean this. I let out a short, humorless laugh. I mean every damn word. Tears spilled down her cheeks. She reached for me again, desperation in her touch. Nauman, please. It was nothing. It was a mistake. I wasn't thinking, Exactly. My voice was sharp, cutting. You weren't thinking. Not about me, not about us. Because if you were, his name wouldn't have been the one on your lips tonight. She shook her head violently. I love you, I scoffed. No, you don't. Because love isn't just words. Love isn't whispering someone else's name in your husband's bed. And love isn't betraying the person who gave you everything. Her sobs grew heavier, her shoulders shaking as she buried her face in her hands. It didn't mean anything. Please, Nauman, don't do this. But the problem was I had already done it. I had already made up my mind. I would not be the fool who spent his life loving a woman who loved someone else. So I took one last look at her, the woman I had built my dreams around, and felt nothing but the sting of betrayal. Then, with a steady breath, I turned and walked out the door. And I didn't look back. The moment I stepped out of that room, a wave of emotions hit me like a storm: anger, humiliation, heartbreak. I had imagined our wedding night so many times. I had pictured us wrapped in each other's arms, whispering sweet promises, starting the life we had always talked about. Instead, I walked away with a shattered heart and a divorce contract in my hands. I made my way downstairs, the Grand Hotel, lobby eerily silent at this late hour. The chandeliers cast a dim, golden glow, but all I felt was darkness swallowing me whole. The receptionist barely glanced at me as I walked out, my footsteps echoing in the empty hallway. The cold night air hit my face, but it did nothing to cool the rage boiling inside me. I loosened my tie, trying to breathe, but it felt like something was crushing my chest. Jenifer, the woman I gave everything to, the woman who had stood beside me, exchanged vows with me, looked into my eyes and said, I choose you, Nauman. And yet just a few hours later, she had whispered another man's name. How long had she been thinking about him? Had she been picturing his face when she kissed me? Had her heart belonged to him even while she was promising herself to me? I clenched, my fists feeling the betrayal cut deeper with every passing second. I pulled my phone from my pocket, my fingers hovering over the screen. A part of me wanted to call her, to demand the truth. Who was Shane? Was he an old love, a forgotten ex, or was he someone who had never left her heart, no matter how hard I tried to make a place for myself? I closed my eyes, forcing back the raw ache in my chest. No, I couldn't do this. I had spent years loving Jenifer, trusting her, believing that she was mine. But the truth was, she had never been mine to begin with, and now I had to let go. Memories that now meant nothing. I found myself walking, aimlessly wandering the city streets. Neon lights flickered around me, but I barely noticed them. The world felt blurred, distant, as if I was trapped in a reality that didn't belong to me anymore. Everything felt like a lie. Every "I love you," every promise, every late-night conversation, every stolen kiss, every moment that had once felt perfect. Had it all meant nothing to her? I remembered the first time she had told me she loved me. We had been sitting in my car, rain tapping softly against the windshield. She had looked at me with so much warmth, tracing her fingers along my jawline, whispering, "I can't imagine my life without you, Nauman." Now, I realized the cruel irony of it all. She had imagined a life without me plenty of times, and tonight, she had proven it. I passed by a small coffee shop. Our coffee shop. The one where we had spent endless evenings, sharing dreams, making plans for a future that now seemed like nothing more than a pathetic fantasy, a future that was never real. I gritted my teeth, forcing myself to keep walking. I had promised myself I wouldn't break. Not for her. Not for a love that was never truly mine. My phone vibrated in my pocket. I pulled it out and her name flashed on the screen. Jenifer. I stared at it, my heart pounding. For a brief moment, I felt the pull. The toxic, familiar pull of wanting to hear her voice, to believe her lies one last time. But I didn't answer. I couldn't. She didn't deserve to explain herself. She didn't deserve another chance. I shoved my phone back into my pocket and continued walking. If she had truly loved me, this would have never happened. If she had truly loved me, my name would have been the only one on her lips tonight, not his. What if I had never found out? A thought hit me so suddenly that it almost made me stumble. What if I had never heard her say his name? Would she have continued to live this lie? Would she have played the perfect wife while secretly longing for another man? Would she have kept looking at me with those beautiful lying eyes while dreaming of him? My stomach twisted at the realization. If I had never known, I would have spent my life loving a woman who had already given her heart away. I would have wasted years trying to be enough for someone who would never truly be mine. And that thought hurt more than anything. It wasn't just the betrayal, it was the fact that she would have let me live in the lie. I let out a shaky breath, the anger burning through my veins. No, I wouldn't be that man. I wouldn't be the fool who stayed, who begged for an explanation, who asked if we could fix something that had been broken from the start. Jenifer had made her choice, and I was making mine. I wasn't going to let her destroy me. I finally stopped walking, standing on the empty streets as the cold wind wrapped around me. For the first time since I had walked out of that room, I let the truth sink in. It was over. Whatever we had, whatever love I thought we shared, it was dead. And even though my heart ached, even though the pain of betrayal felt like a blade slicing through me, I knew one thing for certain. I would never let Jenifer back into my life. Not now. Not ever. I took one last deep breath, letting the night swallow the remnants of what we once were. Then, without another thought, I turned and walked away, leaving behind the woman who had never truly been mine. The night had been long, but my emotions refused to settle. Even after I had walked away from Jenifer, from everything we had built, something inside me still burned. Anger, regret, a deep, gnawing resentment that I had spent years loving a woman who had betrayed me. By the time I returned to my apartment, dawn was already breaking over the city skyline. I tossed my jacket aside and ran a hand through my hair, exhaustion hitting me like a freight train. I wanted to forget everything, to let it all go and move on. But then, my phone vibrated again. Jenifer. I had ignored her all night, but this time she didn't just call. She sent a message. Nauman, I need to talk to you. Please. It's not what you think, I scoffed. Not what I think? What part of hearing my wife whisper another man's name on our wedding night was open to interpretation? I was about to block her number when another text came in. If you don't want to talk, fine, but I think you should know. Shane is dead. I froze. My fingers hovered over the screen as my mind tried to process what I had just read. Dead? I read. The message again, my heartbeat hammering in my chest. What the hell was she talking about? Another text followed. You don't know everything, Nauman. Please just meet me one last time. I should have ignored it. I should have let her drown in her own mistakes. But something about her words didn't sit right. Shane was dead? Who was he really? What connection did she have with him? And why did she say I didn't know everything? Before I could talk myself out of it, I grabbed my keys and headed back out. Confrontation at the coffee shop. I found Jenifer at the coffee shop where we used to go every Sunday. She was sitting at the farthest booth, her hands wrapped tightly around a cup of untouched coffee. She looked like she hadn't slept, her eyes puffy, her hair slightly disheveled. But the moment she saw me, relief flickered in her expression. I didn't sit. I didn't offer a greeting. I just folded my arms and looked at her. Talk. She took a shaky breath, gripping the cup like it was the only thing keeping her together. Nauman, please, just listen to me before you decide anything. I exhaled, sharply. You don't get to ask for favors after what you did. Her lips parted, then closed again. She hesitated, as if unsure of where to start, but finally she spoke. Shane was someone I knew a long time ago, she said slowly. Before I met you, I clenched my jaw. Of course he was. We were together for a few years, she continued, her voice quieter now. It wasn't healthy. He wasn't a good person, Nauman. I frowned. Then why the hell did you say his name? She flinched at my sharp tone. Because, she whispered, he died a week ago. I stared at her, waiting for an explanation. She exhaled shakily, her fingers trembling around the coffee cup. Shane wasn't just my ex. He was obsessive, controlling. He never really let me go. Even after I left him, he kept trying to come back into my life. A bitter chuckle escaped me. And yet, he was still on your mind, even on our wedding night. Her eyes snapped up to meet mine, desperation shining in them. I wasn't thinking about him that way, Nauman. She swallowed hard. The last time I saw him,
He threatened me, I frowned. Threatened you? She nodded, her eyes filling with unshed tears. He told me that if I married you, I would regret it, that I didn't deserve to be happy. He said that no matter how much I tried to move on,
he would always be there. A sick feeling twisted in my gut. She bit her lip. The night before our wedding, I found out he had been in an accident, a car crash. He didn't make it. For a moment, I didn't know what to say. I had prepared myself for lies, excuses, anything but this. So what? I said after a beat, my voice laced with frustration. You were grieving him while standing at the altar with me. She shook her head quickly. No, Nauman, I swear. I didn't love him, not anymore. I let out a humorless laugh. Then why, Jenifer? Why the hell would you say his name in our bed? Her shoulders trembled. Because I was scared, I stilled. She sniffled. I don't know why it happened. I wasn't thinking straight, but when I closed my eyes, it was like his voice was still in my head, telling me I didn't deserve happiness, that I would never escape him. She looked at me with pleading eyes. Nauman, I don't love him. I haven't for years. I love you. But he was my worst mistake. And I think, in that moment, my mind I cut her off with a cold laugh. So, let me get this straight. You're telling me that on our wedding night, while we were supposed to be celebrating our future, your subconscious decided to remember a dead man? Tears slid down her cheeks, but I didn't care. Because no matter how much she explained, one fact remained the same. She had betrayed me. Maybe it wasn't an affair. Maybe it wasn't the betrayal I had imagined, because I had given her my heart, and in return, she had given a part of herself to a ghost. I shook my head, stepping back. I don't care what your reasons are, Jenifer. The fact is you said his name, and that's something I can never forget. Her breath hitched. Nauman, please. No. My voice was final. Cold. Done. For the first time in years, I saw her for who she really was. Not the woman I had fallen in love with. Not the person I had built my life around, just a stranger with too many ghosts. I turned and walked away, leaving her sitting in that coffee shop, broken, alone, and holding the shattered pieces of what we once had. And this time, I wasn't coming back. The city was eerily silent as I walked away from the coffee shop, my mind a battlefield of emotions. I had come here expecting excuses, expecting Jenifer to weave another lie. Instead, I had walked into a storm I wasn't prepared for. Shane was dead. Not just an ex, not just a forgotten lover, a ghost haunting her mind. Even on the night she became my wife. And that was what destroyed me the most. No matter how much she said she loved me, no matter how much she tried to justify it, the reality was undeniable. When her mind was at its most vulnerable, when she wasn't thinking, she hadn't thought of me. She had thought of him. The betrayal wasn't just that she had said another man's name. It was that deep down she was still tied to him in a way I never would be, and that was something I could never accept. By the time I returned to my apartment, I had made up my mind. I would end this marriage immediately. I wanted no more explanations, no more pleading texts, no more regrets. I had already wasted enough years on a woman who had proven, in the most devastating way possible, that I was not enough. I threw my keys on the counter, reached for the divorce papers, and pulled out a pen. I was going to sign them and have them sent to her first thing in the morning, but then, a knock on my door. I froze, my fists clenched at my sides as I already knew who it was. I took a slow, measured breath before walking to the door and swinging. It opened. Jenifer stood there, her face pale, eyes swollen from crying. I could see the desperation in her expression, the way she clutched onto the doorframe as if it was the only thing keeping her standing. Nauman. Please, she whispered. I almost slammed the door in her face, but I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I let her stand there waiting, watching, letting the silence speak for me. She swallowed hard, stepping closer. I know you don't want to see me. I know I hurt you, but I can't. Her voice broke. I can't let you go like this. I exhaled slowly, then turned and walked away, leaving the door open behind me. If she wanted to talk, she could, but I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of my undivided attention anymore. She hesitated, but followed me in, closing the door behind her. I heard her take a deep breath, gathering whatever courage she had left before she finally spoke. I know I messed up. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, she said softly. But Nauman, you have to believe me. It was never supposed to be like this. I let out a bitter chuckle. That's the thing, Jenifer. It was always like this. I just refused to see it. She flinched, but I didn't care. I turned to face her, my arms crossed. Tell me something. If Shane hadn't died, if he was still alive, would you still be standing here begging me not to walk away? She opened her mouth, then closed. Her hesitation was all the answer I needed. I laughed humorlessly, shaking my head. Exactly. Tears spilled down her cheeks. That's not true. I love you, Nauman. I married you. You married me while still haunted by another man. My voice was sharp, cutting through her excuses like a blade. Do you even hear yourself? Do you know what you did to me? She took a shaky step forward. I never meant to hurt. You? I thought I had moved on from Shane. I thought I was free, but you weren't. I finished her sentence coldly. And I'm supposed to just live with that? Her silence was deafening. I took a slow breath, forcing myself to stay calm, even as my world was crumbling beneath my feet. You made me believe that I was your future, Jenifer, I said, my voice low, steady. You made me think that I was enough. I shook my head. But in the end, I was just the man you settled for, the one you chose because the one you truly wanted was gone. Her body trembled. No, yes, I cut her off. And that's the difference between you and me, Jenifer. You settled. I never did. I never looked at another woman and wondered what if. I never gave you anything less than everything I had. Her sobs grew heavier. I don't want to lose you. You already have. I reached for the divorce papers and placed them on the coffee table in front of her. She stared at them, fresh, tears spilling down her cheeks. This is your second chance, Jenifer, I said coldly. Not with me, but with yourself. You need to figure out who you are without the ghosts of your past dictating your future. Her hands trembled as she touched the papers. Please, Nauman, don't do this. I clenched my jaw. I have to. Because staying with her meant losing myself. She fell to her knees, her shoulders shaking as she wept. But I felt nothing. Not anymore. The next morning I woke up to find the signed divorce papers on my coffee table. Jenifer was gone. No note. No goodbye, just the one thing I had been waiting for. I stood there for a long moment staring at the papers. There should have been relief, closure, but all I felt was an empty void. I had loved her. I had wanted a life with her. But love wasn't always enough. And sometimes, letting go was the only way to truly win. With a deep breath, I picked up the papers and made the final call to my lawyer. It was over. For good. And this time, I wasn't looking back. The ink had barely dried on the divorce papers, yet the weight, pressing against my chest, felt lighter than it had in years. It was over. Jenifer was gone, and so was the illusion of the life I had built with her. I expected to feel relief. Maybe even triumph. After all, I had done what most men in my position wouldn't have had the strength to do. I walked away from a woman who betrayed me instead of letting love make a fool out of me. But as I stood in my apartment, staring at the quiet emptiness, all I felt was nothing. Not sadness. Not rage. Not regret. Just emptiness. I wasn't sure if that was a good thing or if I had simply gone numb after everything that had happened. With a slow breath, I picked up my phone and dialed my lawyer. Process the papers, I said, keeping my voice calm, detached. Make sure everything is finalized as soon as possible. The voice on the other end confirmed the arrangements, and just like that, my marriage, what was left of it anyway, was officially coming to an end. Moving forward, but not forgetting, days passed. Then weeks. Life moved on. People at work looked at me differently, but no one said anything to my face. I wasn't the kind of man people goss.